is within her story one of triumph, growth, and purpose. And on her story, we honor those journeys. We shine a light on women who are not just living their truth, but using it to light the way for others. Today's guest is a woman who has made simplicity beautiful and storytelling powerful. Through her Instagram page, The Skillful Woman, Abigail Billing has quietly sparked a movement, one that celebrates intentional living, cultural rootedness, and the everyday wisdom found in our kitchens, homesteads, and hearts. So today we talk about names, stories, food, philosophy, family, and faith, and how one woman's personal journey is transforming lives.
Hey, I'm Abby, and welcome to our homestead here in Marondera, Zimbabwe. We live on 3 hectares where we raise chickens, ducks, pigs, rabbits, and even mealworms. We follow a grain-free diet because both my son and I are gluten intolerant, so I've had to learn to cook absolutely everything from scratch. One of my biggest drives is saving money wherever I can. Living in Zimbabwe is a beautiful thing, but it comes with its fair share of challenges, and finding creative ways to stretch a dollar is just part of everyday life here. But honestly, I think that's at the heart of most Zimbabweans. We make a plan, we figure things out, and we keep going. So if you're into real, honest living, stick around. This is where we share the journey.
This is her story. I'm your host, Nkosi, and joining me now is Abigail Billing. Abigail, welcome.
Thank you so much.
You know, when I saw you, I was like, yay, I can't wait to tell my friends I met Abigail, because you are such a buzz right now. We're so honored to have you join us today.
Thank you so much.
The Skillful Woman, what is in a name?
So I felt God led me to start my Substack account, which is primarily writing, and then also the Instagram account. But with both, I needed to find a name. And I wasn't sure what to name these accounts. And so I prayed about it a lot. And then Proverbs 31 is extremely central to my life, because I'd love my life to reflect the woman that's described in Proverbs 31. And I started reading through it, and nothing really stuck until I got to the line where it says she's skilled in crafts.
Right.
And so the craft of gardening, the craft of cooking, and the craft of looking after my family stuck. And so the Skillful Woman started.
I love it, because, you know, they often say that if a story is in you, it has to come out. So what made you actually start and have the boldness to share your story so openly?
Yeah, again, that was really difficult to figure out, because I fought against it for a very long time. I felt prompted to start writing on Substack for a long time. And finally, I just took the plunge because I had a lot of thoughts and I just wanted to write about them. And Instagram took a lot longer. I fought against it for over a month last year until I finally submitted. And I said, okay, God, I'm going to start this account. And I just took the plunge and started sharing my life and what I do, because those are the instructions I received. Just share your life and what you do. And so I started that, and it finally took off in March this year.
So tell us some of the stories that you share. What kind of stories do you talk about? I mean, you started in March and you're now on 40,000 followers.
Yeah, I went viral at the end of March. Just one Friday morning, I posted a reel and it took off. And I just couldn't believe it. Within 4 days, I reached 20K. And then over the last 2 months, I've reached 40K. So I just share my life, and I share real life, nothing fancy, nothing that some social media accounts promote is an opulent life and things that are out of people's reach. I share what I do, how I save my family money, easy recipes, and gardening, growing your own food, things that people, I believe, really need in this country to survive.
It is so relatable. Now, can you tell us what made you choose the wording rooted in African homestead, inspiring simple living for everyone, everywhere, anywhere. What's the philosophy with that?
So it's less of a philosophy and more just being direct with people who arrive on my account. I just want them to know that where I live is on a homestead on the African continent, because people overseas will find my account and not be sure. So just being upfront with what you're going to find on this account. Simple living, nothing super fancy except for, when I make it to TV or something. And just, I want them to stay and follow because they want to find out about the things I post about, not for any other reason. It's less of a philosophy and just more being upfront with people and honest.
I love that, because honesty has become something that is not easy to find, especially on social media. And one of the things you also talk about is how you want your kids to know where the food comes from, them just knowing, that you go to a shop and buy it. What drives you to want the next generation to know, where the natural things come from?
Yeah, that's really big in our family. It's one of our core values between my husband and I, is to make sure that our kids know where their food comes from. Because kids today have no clue that milk comes from a cow. And, cheese comes from milk that comes from a cow, or their bacon comes from a pig. I'm not saying just here in this country, it's all over the world. And I don't want that for my kids. I'd love them to be connected to the food that is nourishing them, that the food doesn't come from a grocery store. It actually comes from animals and plants. And I want them to be aware of the time and the resources plowed into actually raising these animals and making them healthy and possibly, hopefully, organic. Same with the veggies, that everything about what keeps them alive actually takes hard work from someone. And I think it's just core to them. So that when I take them to the veggie garden, they know what mint is and what oregano is and what pumpkin leaves are or nasturtiums. They have a connection and they appreciate their food a whole lot more.
I appreciate that. And I have two boys, 12 and 10. And I'm embarrassed to say this on national TV, but my boys, the one time I took them to a rural homestead, right? And they were afraid of cows. So, I see your kids and the stuff that they're able to do with animals, with, gardening. They've got that already within them, even though they are that young. Let's say I've got a piece of land at the back of my house and I want to start something. What would your advice be? Like a simple garden, what can I do? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one who's got space and maybe we're not necessarily using it.
Yes, thank you for asking that, because people have space and they have resources. A lot of people say, I don't have water. Well, if you turn to maybe a chemical-free soap and wash yourself and collect that water that you're after a shower, you do have water to water a small garden. And I would just say take 1 meter by 3 meter block, plant herbs first, because they're pretty much fail-proof and they can flavor all your food and they're medicinal too, most of them. And then choose the easy things. Choose the leafy greens, the spinach, things like that, because that will play into your food budget and it'll also nourish your family. And then on livestock, I would say rabbits or chickens. Start with those because they're easy and low cost.
Right. Rabbits or chicken. And what type of herbs would you be talking about?
100% thyme, rosemary, oregano. And then if you have a dripping tap outside, plant some mint under the tap because it loves a lot of water constantly. So put the mint under the tap so it's always getting some water, and you're set for almost all of your meals.
One of the things that I love about your story and what you're telling is how you bring practical things to the home. After the break, I want to hear some of your reels that went viral. But for now, we are going to take a short break. We're coming back after this. You're still with us right here on Her Story, where we are talking to the skillful woman, Abigail. Now, before we went on the break, we were talking about how you bring practical things to homes for women, mothers, And I just want to hear which one of your reels or what were you sharing that went viral, and why do you think it went viral on Instagram?
So the viral reel came left field. I had been posting for a long time, since last September, so in 2024, and just posting and posting. But this one I felt like introducing myself again. So I took a whole lot of clips from everything I do, you know, the animals, with my kids, in the kitchen, cooking, and I put them all together and I did a voiceover of who I was. Hi, I'm Abby and I live on a Zimbabwean homestead, and this is what I do, X, Y, and Z. And within a few minutes, people were sharing it. And we got in the car to actually drive to Harare that day. And I kept checking my phone. And my husband said, "Why do you keep checking your phone?" And I said, "I don't know why I'm getting all of these followers. They're just flooding in." By the end of that day, I'd reached 5,000. So I started at around 230 something. And I reached 5,000. The next day, 10,000. The following day, 15. And the fourth day, 20. And then over 2 months, I've reached 40,000. But the content that is most popular, that doesn't necessarily go viral, but gets a lot of views, is when I share budgeting tips, or I share myself going to the local market and buying vegetables. So what that tells me is that people are craving ways of saving money in their families, and to find ways to eat healthily, but on a budget. And that's the feedback I get. And they're also craving realness.
I try to get out to my garden at least once a day. And this Sunday, while my little one napped, I picked some zinnia seeds that had dried out and had just been waiting there for me to actually come and harvest them. Then I picked whatever was ready in the garden to take inside and add to our dinner. So I got some spinach, and then I got some delicious rocket that's about to go to seed. So I needed to pick quite a lot of it. And then this massive lettuce. I was really happy that I planted some things early in the autumn. And these are pepinos that are at the end of their time. And then I got some Sauvignon beans. Well, at least that's what we call them. And then I did some planning for this week. I want to plant some peas in this section as a late harvest. And then I treated myself to a tree tomato. I absolutely love them, and they take me straight back to my childhood.
So in my DMs, in my inboxes, I get lots of messages with people saying, "Thank you so much for being real. Thank you, you are so relatable because I'm on a budget and you're on a budget." And I also think it's because I pitch up on Instagram without makeup on, in my random clothes and my pink Crocs and marching out to the garden. I think people feel connected to me because that's who they are at home. I'm not putting on a face. And
Right.
sometimes that's difficult for me to do, but I think it's appreciated.
It really is. I remember one of the reels where you actually went to the local market and you got matching outfit for kids, and you're like, "Oh, this is so great!" And you know, it's stuff that, you know, moms want to see, want to know it's possible. And we see you from making sour milk to making cheese, and you know, I spoke a little bit earlier about how you use chicken bones to make broth. I mean, what's the stock? Where do these ideas come from? Because you share them, but from where?
I have to give credit to my own parents. I grew up in a household that had a very strict budget. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had enough to be healthy and live a good life. But my folks, right from small, they were always budgeting and thinking of ways to live a good life, but on a smaller budget than those around us. So I watched them, and that came naturally to me as I became an adult. And I've just extended that. So I've done research, I've followed other people with really good ideas. I look online. If I look at something and I don't know how to use it well, I'll look online and find ways to do it. And that's what I've done. So basically, I look at everything in my kitchen and see how I can use every single piece of that. And if I can't use it, can my animals eat it? And if my animals can't eat it, can I compost it? And that means that we actually have very little waste that goes
Right.
into our dustbin and goes into the dustbin collection every week. And that's where it really comes from, is just a want to use absolutely everything that we have to the best of our abilities. And chicken bones, we also chew on the end of our chicken bones, but then it goes into the stock pot. And that turns into something really nutritious that feeds us later in another meal.
Right.
And our house revolves around food. And so a lot of my focus is the focus on food and how I can use it to the nth degree.
That's really interesting because I was just thinking of my own dustbin in the kitchen. It's like every night we have to empty it and there's stuff in there. And I'm thinking, well, I don't have animals right now, but the stuff you're talking about is the stuff that we need, you know. It's not like everybody is on a high budget or everybody's got, you know, the resources to just recycle things. To just buy and keep buying things. I want like one tip of something that maybe we don't realize how much we can save upon at home. I know you spoke about how we can have our own garden. What other tips would you have for like a kitchen, a mom cooking, stuff that we have, but maybe we don't realize that we could actually save if we took more time to actually be creative with it?
I think on that question, I think the top answer for that is to look at what you're throwing away.
Okay.
So that is where you're going to get your answer from. I was discarding bones. So that answer for me is to make stock.
Right.
I was discarding a lot of onion peels, garlic peels, the ends of carrots. I now take that and put it in a bag and in my freezer, and when I've got a good amount, then I put that in the stock pot and make stock, whether it's veggie stock or chicken stock. And that would be my top tip, is that you're going to reduce your waste by looking at what you're throwing away.
Right.
And of course, environmentally, if you're throwing away a lot of plastic, can you go to a shop or go to the market with bags you already own and use those rather than buy new ones? So that will reduce the waste that goes into our environment, and it might save you a few cents because all of those bags are purchased. So it's these tiny little things that add up, and that's what I look at and then advise others on.
That definitely makes sense. You start with what you're wasting to see how you can save up, and you know, I like that. I'm gonna look at my own dustbin.
Did you know that in Marandera we have our own hydroponics farm? It's tucked along First Street and produces some of the freshest, cleanest produce you'll find, from crisp lettuce and vibrant herbs to juicy tomatoes, crunchy cucumbers and green peppers. All of it is grown right here using sustainable, soil-free methods. They're open 5 days a week and half-day Saturdays, so it's easy to swing by and stock up. It's a brilliant local resource, fresh, local and proudly Zimbabwean. Go check it out and support something good happening right here in Marandera.
That's amazing. And, you know, I think living in Zimbabwe has its own fair share of challenges. And my question to you is, how has living in Zimbabwe shaped your perspective of life with your family and just being able to relate with the challenges that people go through?
Yeah, I mean, living in Zim is normal to us. You know,
Right.
when you live in Zim, it just is normalized and you roll with the punches. But we don't live under a rock, and we do know how other people in other countries live, and we have traveled a little bit before we had kids, and so we have experienced other parts of the world. And for one, I can say that I'm just so relieved that my children are living in Zimbabwe and being raised here, because they're being raised under a warm sun and blue skies, and they've got the opportunity to connect to nature that so many other children don't have. But that doesn't mean that we're immune to the hardships
Right.
of this country.
Right.
Things can be really tough, and things have been really tough. But we're still here, and we still see a future in this country, and we are called to live here. And that's what we're standing on, is that promise that God's not going to leave us in this country, and He has a future. And I just can't wait to see how things can flourish here.
What I love about your answer was the fact that she said we're living under blue skies and so forth. And I just thought to myself, wow, it's the perspective or the things that you choose to focus on that make a difference. Because often we would want to complain and, you know, talk about the negative stuff before we actually affirm the things that are going well for us. Now, you're a woman, a mother, and let's say there's somebody at home who's watching a woman who's struggling. What words of encouragement would you give them, to say you can push on, or you can survive and keep moving? What words of encouragement would you want to share?
So, firstly, I don't know everyone's hard time, and I don't ever want someone to think that I think we're equal, or that I think my hard time's the same as theirs. Everyone's got a different level of hard time and what they're experiencing. But the bottom line is that we're having a hard time and we're struggling. So I don't want to take that away. And I don't want to be an influencer who says my whole life is amazing and I have no struggles, because there are those kind of accounts out there where you only see the glossy side. But my biggest thing in my heart that I've been learning is through discouragement and through hardship and wanting to give up. I've been there. I want people to know that I have been there, and not 2 years ago, not a year ago, but like this year, a few weeks ago. That is very real to me. And so I do know that pain. And my biggest message that I'm trying so hard to learn and grasp at the moment is that if I give up, the devil's won.
Right.
God doesn't want us to give up. He wants us to surrender everything in our life. And when we surrender and hand that over at His feet, He has a playing field to mold your life and to bring out what He's wanting and to encourage you and to raise people to lift you up. But you do need to surrender, and that's what I'm on a journey to do. And I just believe that I need to share that with others.
Yeah, I love that. And women are always striving for balance, striving to say, I just have to find balance in life. My take personally is balance is not always balance. I don't know. Is there a way that you find balance yourself? How do you try and balance yourself? Do you have balance? Is it possible, or it's something that you have to constantly work on?
I don't feel like I have balance a lot of the time, because I love what I do and I love working in the fields that I work in. So I plow into that a lot, and then I suddenly have to take myself out of that and think, oh my goodness, I've got to do something else that's valuable. Balance is a factor of diligence. I find is that what's really core to my life is I try to be diligent with the things that are important. And if you are as diligent as you can be, you will find some kind of balance. Diligence in budgeting, so that controls the balance with your finances. Diligence in family time and caring for your family, cooking them food. That's a type of balance. And relationally, when that's being neglected, to be diligent in rebuilding those relationships. Is balance achievable? I'm not sure, because I don't often feel balanced. But diligence is at the core there, and that's how I think we could become balanced.
That's great. Now we're about to wrap up, and my final question to you is, obviously you're married. How has your support system been from your husband and from your kids for you to be able to achieve the stuff that you're doing right now?
I have a really cool support system. I think at the beginning, a lot of people didn't know what I was doing on Instagram and why I was appearing and looking funny in videos. But my husband's the biggest support. And I mustn't say too much because I'll just start crying. But he's with me every step of the way, and he's supported everything. And sometimes he's behind the camera and getting eaten by ants, and he's filming me. My kids think it's really cool. And then also my own parents and my in-laws and our extended family. They've been watching my numbers rise. They've been on WhatsApp saying, way to go, you've hit 10K. Let's have a dinner for this, or let's celebrate. So I just think the support system's been great. And there have been naysayers. There have been people who've got jealous and all of that. But I just ignore them, and this is good.
This is awesome. Abigail, thank you so much for joining us today. I think my takeaway from you today is two things: stay authentic, and also a perspective on life. It's easy to look at the negative and forget that we actually have some good things going for us. Well, that's all we had for you today here on Her Story. Do stay tuned right here on 3K TV for more programming.